with your host, Sean Myrie. Today, we got a great guest. He's a legend in his fields. He's done tons of documentaries and he has directed many films, like over 45 years of my research, right? So, I would like to welcome the one and only Alan Govenar. I want to know if I said it right.
It's Governor, but yes, you
Governor, okay.
basically said everything great. Thank you.
So, you could tell the people a little bit about yourself, what you do, like, your journey.
Well, my journey begins in early childhood. I grew up in inner city Boston, and it was an area that was where 85% of the Jews of Boston lived. And my grandmother owned a triple decker in the city, and it was largely Eastern European Jews and Russians, Ukrainians, and a lot of languages I didn't understand. And
Mhm.
during the course of my childhood in the 1950s, the cultural demographics changed. Fortunately, my parents were very socially progressive. And while the world around me, I sensed the impending racial violence that eventually ensued and the tensions. My father had aspired to be a writer, but which didn't happen because of World War II. But he worked in jobs he didn't really like that much. But what gave him the greatest pleasure was doing work in the community. So he did interfaith work. He was a volunteer for the Boy Scouts for 35 years. He started a program to help juvenile delinquents and first time offenders to give kids a second chance. He we worked undercover for Navy intelligence and
Mhm.
wrote reports about Nazi party meetings and Communist Party meetings in Boston. And he loved black music.
Mhm.
And so my first records that I remember, the one of I think is most prominent in my memory was Dizzy Gillespie, Sarah Vaughan, Charlie Parker. I grew up on all that. And so for me, first of all, recognizing the need for people to interact in meaningful ways with each other. I grew up in a world that believed in social change, and that has stayed with me. So that's really at the root of everything that I do because I've always been comfortable crossing between worlds and bringing people closer together is a big part of my mission. I'm a hopeful person. And this has manifested itself throughout my life. I started writing poetry when I was 17. I started became my first or became a novel of mine that I started at age 18 that was just published May of this year. So it only took 71 years to come to fruition. Um, but I've had a very free-form career. I'm trained as an academic. I have a PhD in arts and humanities, and a master's degree in folklore studies. And my work has always been multidimensional because my approach has always been to experience as much of the world as I can. And it's always the subject I'm working on that helps define the medium of expression. So for me, while it may seem like, well, I've published 40 books, I've written children's books, I've written plays, I've written a few off Broadway shows, I've made more than 2 dozen movies of different sorts. But I move fluidly between medium. It's not like I'm doing them all at the same time, but in some sense, they all have meaning. So my newest film, Quiet Voices in a Noisy World, A Struggle for Change in Jasper, Texas, builds on 30 years of interactions that I had with people in Jasper. And my going to Jasper predates the lynching of James Byrd in 1998. And I have remained in contact with people in the Black community there over the years and um, It's been a very, I think, productive working relationship.
I was looking that up. Like you have a big resume and of doing movies. I know you have one similar to the one that's coming out what November 14th. You have
Yeah,
one based off of JFK, like that time era. I think it's called Down in Dallas. I mean, correct me if I'm.
yes. It's down in Dallastown from JFK to K2.
Mhm.
And I did that in conjunction with the 60th anniversary of the Kennedy assassination. It's not about conspiracy theories. It's about how Kennedy was remembered and how parts of his legacy were not fulfilled. So it takes a very different perspective. First of all, it looks about at Kennedy, and the soundtrack of that are songs that were written about Kennedy after the assassination. But it also incorporates this amazing story that was told by Marianne Moorman, who is known as the silent witness, who did a single photograph of the first bullet hitting Kennedy's head. And that's juxtaposed to the points of view of some of the homeless people and people who visit the Kennedy site. And that perspective was really revealing to me when, and it didn't, I was there. I went, I live mostly in Dallas, but I also live in New York City. And I was talking to someone who was homeless, and he talked about how Kennedy, fuck, he was the kind of guy that would say, give the little guy a chance, give the little guy a chance. And that just, it was like, wow, I had never thought of it from that perspective. But then, the more I looked into it, it clearly, Kennedy was the beginnings of the war on poverty, and that promise was unfulfilled. And in today's world, it's completely under siege.
That's true. That's true. So what do you think about like the storytelling, how it's grown? Because you're a veteran in like the documentary space. There's a lot of documentaries now, especially on Netflix. Netflix and other platforms have popularized documentaries like your own. What do you think about that space now? There's no cable anymore. It's more like online. A lot of documentaries.
It's certainly a different world, though I still believe in theatrical premieres because it opens me up to a bigger audience. It generates reviews, and my movies last a long time. I mean, my first film, Stoney Knows How, premiered at Film Forum in New York City in 1981, and it's still in active distribution today. So my films stay around, and the subjects I choose to focus on are ones that I believe in or am committed to and tend to have and prefer to have long-standing relationships with the people that they're about. So that's very important to me. And this film that's premiering November 14th at Cinema Village in New York City is showing alongside a retrospective of 12 of my earlier films. But I have over 2 dozen films that are on Netflix, on Amazon Prime. I've had films on Netflix. I've made in my earlier years, I made more television type documentaries, but now I've been exploring other ways of telling stories. At root, I'm a storyteller, whether I'm writing poetry or fiction or doing a nonfiction book, and I love listening to other people's stories. And the people that are the subjects are active participants in the making. This film in particular, because of the nature of the racially charged content of it. These are, it's an amazing story for me. What these individuals have done in Jasper, it's a group of volunteers in their 70s and 80s who have come back to Jasper to reclaim their history, to reclaim their identity and the self esteem of a place that has been subjected to decades of virulent racial violence.
As you talk about this, and we're in the age of people cancel culture, censorship. It's up and down the place, and you know what's going on in the world, like especially with Mr. I call him Donald, right? Mr. Donald. Now, with like media what goes out there like this, do you feel that sometimes like they're gonna stop the creative control, like like it hurts by them doing all this censorship stuff? Because there was supposed to be a documentary, for example, in dealing with a racial subject, and they actually blocked that from coming out on like some platforms recently.
Really? What was the movie?
It was about, there was I forgot which part in the South, but it was a fight between some workers at I think a golf resort, and some white individuals. It was something like that. It was based off this big fight what happened at some country club. I think I don't want to know say the wrong state, but they blocked that documentary from coming out just recently.
Well, this is a film. They loved it because they're quiet voices. I mean, these are people who put up historical markers. They're important. They have a scholarship fund for Black kids in this area. They've given over $200,000 in scholarships.
That's great.
They've built little museums. They built their own. For one of the great things among many that they've done was that the town of Jasper has a veteran of foreign wars memorial near the city hall. Well, there was not one African American represented or listed. So they built their own memorial that's
That's
all
great.
about Black veterans of foreign wars. So for me, this movie couldn't be more timely because it's quiet voices against the forces that are trying to erase that history.
Well, that's kind of happening right now with a certain individual. How you feel about that? Taking down statues, trying to get rid
Right.
of
Well,
certain
I think
things.
have you watched my film?
Which one? No, I haven't
Yeah.
got. I read about you. I haven't. I'm gonna be taking them all in. Trust me. I'm gonna be
Uh,
watching all of them. I'm a
Okay,
documentary
but you
person.
should watch. Well, you should watch this one because it's really 95% of it shot in Jasper.
Hmm.
But some of the most poignant material was also shot in Dallas. Because
Okay.
and within Texas, there's one Freedmen's Memorial site, and there's a woman, Norma Adams Wade, whose family came through East Texas to Dallas, settled here. She was the only Black full-time journalist for the Dallas Morning News for 45 years. And there's another Black journalist, Bob Ray Sanders, who's part of the founding board of documentary arts, who talk about this. But this is exactly what you're talking about. And when I filmed this in the Freedman Cemetery Memorial, I've also done other work. I've been an adjunct curator for the African American Museum here in Dallas and did an exhibition on this cemetery of and it was intended to be up for 1 year. It's now been up for over 25 years at the African American Museum here. But we were filming there, and it's really about exactly what you're talking about. This is a very powerful memorial. But sadly, just in recent weeks, there's been graffiti. And it's been there for a long time, this memorial. And so, yes, it's frightening. And we all have a responsibility. This is American history. Yes, it focuses on African Americans, but I have a Jewish background. It's like the Holocaust deniers, people who say it never happened. Well, it happened, and we need to learn from that. And what this movie's about is overcoming trauma. I mean, that's another theme in my work. My novel that took 50 years to get published is about it's a novel, it's fictionalized, but it's about a trauma that I experienced when I was 18. And but it's not about the trauma, it's about how do we get through it? What do we do? It's like, yes, we're living in this kind of horrific time in the politics of erasure. What can we do in a meaningful
Join back. He was just talking. There you are. Yeah, that's that's why. Yep.
it will have its theatrical premiere going for a week in New York City. It's going to be showing at the Angelica Theater in Dallas in December. So it will get out there. Where are you based?
Where am I based? You see, it's down to earth. I'm all the way in Canada, Toronto.
Oh, really?
Yep, Toronto. We're a big film place too. We do the film festival.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cultures here. Basically, America's our entertainment. It's our television.
Well, my novel, Come Around Right, part of it's set in Canada.
Oh, okay,
And part of it, there's an afternoon in Toronto in my book.
that's interesting to read. I gotta look that up.
But it's about Canada in part. Well, it's what happens in Canada in this particular instance. And Toronto is an amazing city. I love Toronto.
Yeah. So you know what? Now that you're talking about that, because we're going through a big thing too in Canada too. Like I could do a documentary on like your leader, well, not your leader, Mr. Trump, and what's going on with these tariffs and stuff. It's making a lot of social speak. People are like talking against immigrants and stuff like what you're saying. Like a lot of racial stuff is coming up. So now they're bringing up this censorship. So anything like what we talk about regarding social issues is very filtered, right? It's filtered more than ever on these platforms. So, like in Toronto, for example, I said the film festival is very big. Someone like you, like your documentaries, will does really good down these ways in Canada. I don't know what you
Well,
know about Toronto. Toronto has
oh, well,
changed.
Toronto Film Festival is one of the most important,
Hmm.
you know, and so you should watch this movie.
I'm
I
going to
mean,
watch.
I think there would be interest in Canada to see this movie. I mean, my novel is set in the fictional past of 1970, the
Mhm.
fictional present of 1971. So, I mean, and in part, it was my novels about that, the important what Canada represented during the Vietnam War.
Oh, okay,
To pee into the end of the 1960s. So,
interesting.
I mean, and clearly, uh, Canada was a huge destination for runaway slaves.
Yes, yes, yes. Yep, they'll
That
put it in
was,
the movies.
and so this movie addresses issues that will be difficult for some people
Mm,
because of what the content of in this. I mean, there are descriptions and images of racial violence,
yes,
and but then again, as I say that, that's the context. That's not the story. So
yeah.
the idea is, how do we deal with this? And so in the United States, I deeply believe that, what the people in Jasper are a model
Hmm.
for what should be done on a local level everywhere,
You're right.
because we have to take responsibility for ourselves, for our families, for our communities.
Yes.
And I think that movement is growing. I think
Yep.
people understand that. I grew up at a difficult time. The Vietnam War was raging. There was, the peace and love of the 1960s was becoming, the violence of the 1970s.
Yes.
And that's a pivot point, an inflection point. So for me, I like exploring those areas.
So you say an explorer, right? I would hate to cut you off, but you wrote even science fiction novels. What's the most popular one? Because that seems to be very big right now, all over social media with this alien stuff and
Well,
robots, AI.
I've actually never written a science fiction novel unless under some alias that I don't know anything about. I've published one other novel that's called Boccaccio and the Berkshires
Mhm.
that I wrote a couple of years ago. And I'm working on a new novel that life. And so I don't really, I mean, for me, it's the kid inside that writes these books, that makes these movies, that makes photographs, and does my other kind of creative activities, working in musical theater and otherwise. But so I don't really, my favorite is what I'm working on now because the joy is in the making.
That's good. That's good. I like that. You're a creator. So November 14th is when it drops. What did you get any feedback like from your peers about this so far? Like anybody you know who hasn't like they seen it themselves?
Oh, yeah, yeah. There's been a lot of very positive.
I will. I'll do a review. Exactly, because I do reviews too. I do reviews. So I will watch. I will. I will. And I'm gonna be watching everything you have, everything what you got. I'm gonna just dig into it really deep and everything. So if you could give anybody any inspiration who wants to be a writer or up and coming director, what would you tell them to like what could you give them words of wisdom?
I would say just do it. you know, I mean, I trust the words that come out of my mouth, you know, and it doesn't mean I don't revise them later. I'm not vain about what I do. And, this novel, Come Round Right, went through 100 drafts over 50 years, at least, because there were very difficult issues to work through and to really stylistically create what I wanted and what I was striving for. So I think that one needs to reach deep inside. And my lifestyle is not prescriptive for someone else, but I encourage people to just look a little deeper, look at the world in a slightly different way.
And that way, a lot of people don't want to do that. It may be an age group, not everybody. There's an individual, but like what you're saying, the realness, right? When you're talking about the realness, it's more a little bit deeper. They want everything like microwave, very fast, and sometimes fantasized, right? They want it like that. But people who really want the knowledge and they respect the knowledge, they will look deep, like what you're saying. They'll listen to for example a podcast like what I do and my brother. They'll watch a documentary what you do and your novels. They'll read it. But in this day and age, it's social media like what we're doing right now to send out that message, that energy. That's how we got to put it out there right now, right?
That's exactly right. We need to unify as a people. I mean, documentary arts, as I told you, I founded this in 1985 to someone's at my door, just a second. Uh,
We'll wrap it up soon.
Yeah, let me just run downstairs. But
Yeah,
I
yeah.
started this organization. I was never a,
It's all right. It's
wanted
down
to
to
be a
earth,
full
man.
time. I never wanted to be a full time executive director. I
Yes.
wanted to create an international network of like minded people
Hmm.
working together toward common good. So just one second. Let me.
Yeah, that's all right. We just
Uh,
got Alan Governor on the live talking about his projects, what he has done, his books, directing,
type.
all types of stuff. We live and direct, and I want you people to please subscribe. Yeah, it's all
Doing
right,
this.
man. That's all right.
So
People like this. Real reality, real life.
yeah, it's definitely reality. I'm going to introduce her to you. This is Kalita, and this is
Hi,
Sean
how
in
you doing?
Toronto.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Hello.
Kalita
Nice to
is
meet
an artist.
Yeah.
And, I told you a little bit about Jasper. Kalita and I founded the Texas African American
you.
Photography Archive here. And uh, it has more than 60,000 images.
That's a lot.
And Kalita is a sculptor or metal sculptor. So she was just, I want to show you
Yeah,
one of her new pieces in progress. So I'm going
go
to
ahead.
turn this around. So you see this?
Oh, damn, that's big. That's big.
Yeah.
That's big.
Yeah, she's heavy duty. She just had a big show at Aaron Cooley Gallery
That's
at
good.
in Dallas. And so,
It's
Sean, it's
good.
been great talking to you. Do write a review
I
and
will.
stay in touch with me. Okay.
Much respect. Thank you for coming through. Down to earth. Alan
Thank
Governor.
you.
Bless up.
Thank you soon.